press start when you're ready. I'll mute myself, but I'm here if you need me.
Good afternoon, guys. Thank you so much for joining. We're just giving a couple of minutes for people to join in, and then we'll get started. Thank you for joining. Welcome and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining. And so the aim of this and future EMCR seminar events is basically to generate a resource for future, current and future EMCRs. And this is supposed to be helping them to prepare themselves for future fellowships, different grant writings, and overall help them in their career development process. So we hope the seminar series today and in future will help you all. And also the advice and the experience of experts that is going to be shared on this platform will motivate you for your future applications and provide right direction. So today we're going to talk about Advanced Queensland Fellowship applications. And as we all know, some of you might have already gone through the application process and might be preparing as well. Some of you might be looking at it for future objective of your career. So it's really important to understand what is Advanced Queensland Fellowship application is and what its objective is, because if you look at the fellowship website, it's really a bold and ambitious program developed by Queensland government for researchers. And the three main objectives that it has is build Queensland's reputation and its capacity for future, also develop a new product and services for Queenslanders and also possibly for Australia, and establish new industry and generate new jobs. So really it's more application-oriented research that we are looking into. And to help us to go through this process, we have three researchers, postdoc researchers here with us. So we have Alice Hayward from Center for Horticulture Research, Center for Horticulture Science. So just to introduce Alice, she's mid-career researcher, particularly focusing on molecular biology and plant tissue culture. She has more than 12 years of experience. She's worked in UQ as well as in Chinese Academy of Science in China. And she's been working here in QAAFI for more than 7 years now. She has applied so many different small funds and awards, and she has co-written successful Advanced Queensland Innovation Partnership and ARC linkage with Professor Nina Mitter. Then we have Karishma Mody. She also finished a PhD from QAAFI with Dean's Award, which is really prestigious. She is currently working as a postdoc between Center for Horticulture Science and Center for Animal Science. And she has championed so many different partnerships between Queensland industries and successfully got a few awards and currently working as an early career Advanced Queensland Fellow in QAAFI. And then we have Anne who is part of the QAAFI Center for Horticulture Science and also part of the School of Chemistry and Molecular Biosciences, SCMB in QAAFI. She has been working on fungal pathogen, plant pathogen related research. She's completed her PhD on microbial photosynthesis from Institute for Molecular Biosciences, UQ. And after finishing her PhD, she carried out 3 years of postdoc from Ruhr University from Germany in microalgal hydrogen production. And since 2018, she's been working here in QAAFI on gene silencing in plants and was awarded Queensland Industry Research Fellowship to develop RNA vaccines against plant fungal diseases. So what we're going to do is to understand their journey. It's more about how they tackle different issues that they face or different situations that they face during this application process. And we're going to understand their journey, and possibly you can relate it to your journey and then find some motivation to do that. So there are different assessment criteria, and we'll try and understand what was the focus of their research when they were writing this grant, and how they addressed each of these questions. So shall we start? So first, let's say focus of your project. So we'll start from Anne, maybe. Is it okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So would you like to explain like what was the your project focus, and then how did you start writing the Advanced Queensland Fellowship?
Okay. Yeah. So mine, as you said before, was on RNA vaccines to protect crops from different fungal pathogens. So we identified crops that were economically important for Queensland, because the whole focus of this fellowship is on Queensland. So, and diseases that were of interest to those industries. So I was targeting the avocado industry as well as the pineapple industry, trying to protect their plants from Phytophthora root rot. And that's one of the biggest diseases that they have. So it's of considerable economic significance for those industries. And I also I included Myrtle Rust as a project, and that kind of got added on right at the last minute because I had interest from a woman who was the Gene Search representative. She had some funding from Gene Search and was very passionate about protecting our native plants from Myrtle Rust, which is actually a pathogen that only just arrived in Australia in 2010, and it's a biosecurity risk. It just is spreading all across Australia, and the problem is that it infects a lot of plants, so more than 300 Myrtaceae species, so pretty much all the iconic plants you can think of, so like eucalypts, lily pillies, lemon myrtle was a big one. So I had lemon myrtle industry as my third industry. So yeah, the focus was on sustainable crop protection. So I'm part of Nina's BioClay group. So we're trying to protect plants against different pathogens using RNA protected by this nanoclay, and it's known as BioClay. And so in Nina's lab, a lot of work had been done on viruses and insect pests, but we hadn't really done that much work on fungal pathogens. So my focus was on extending the BioClay platform to protect plants against fungi.
Yeah. And how is it for you, Karishma?
So pretty similar to Anne's, because my fellowship also focused on extending Nina's BioClay platform to animal health. So our focus, we were working on different animal health targets, but using pesticides. However, we wanted to extend the RNAi technology, and this gave us the perfect platform to do so. So we had industry, Mohinda Ingelheim came on board to support as industry partner. I also had some growers on my fellowship who are sheep growers. So our main target was in sheep. Two of the largest pathogens which caused economic impact were sheep blowfly and lice. So my application mainly focuses on both sheep blowfly and lice to develop a sustainable alternative to the chemicals which are currently used. So all the growers, I also have DAF as the industry partner, and DAF leads a program called Leading Sheep, which is specifically for all the sheep growers. So having them on board was a big advantage, because what I did is I reached out to them. I had like a flyer explaining what my project is about, and what happened is I got few growers on board, and also Peter James, Tim Mani, and Nina helped me get more partners on board. So that's how my project came together.
Okay, wonderful. How are you?
Thanks, Amal. So yes, I was in the first round of the Advanced Queensland scheme. So I think it was 2015. I know the application's changed a little bit since then, but it's basically the same kind of concept. Advantage for Queensland, obviously, and having partners and showing that real collaboration. So I was lucky in that I'd been working on Nina's ARC linkage for avocado tissue culture. And as part of that, we had like a dedicated research question on the genes that control root induction, because it's really important when you're doing any tissue culture project for the plants to root at the end of it. And it's a massive bottleneck for a lot of really woody species. They just don't want to fall on these roots. So based on that work, I applied for Advanced Queensland with the same partners. So they were really happy with our progress in tissue culture. And so I approached them with Nina. There was 2 growers in a nursery. Did they want to put some small amount of funding extra into my Advanced Queensland Fellowship? So I was really lucky we already had that relationship, and I could just like draw on them again. And they didn't have to put that much in. Back then I think it was 5,000 from each of them. And then we also had DAF, which was the key industry partner where I could spend some of my time, because we had to show co-location with industry back then. So DAF came on board. Ecosciences Precinct Lindy Coates actually had some of her salary dedicated to my project as a commitment. And then I was working on, can we actually modulate gene expression using exogenous RNAs or microRNAs and other molecules that people have been trialing to induce root induction in plants, to see if we could improve the tissue culture process for woody crop species. And I guess the relevance of that was it's such a big loss and bottleneck for a lot of clonal propagation systems that I could really sell the advantage of having a better rooting system, not just for tissue culture, but for traditional cutting propagation. If we can understand the mechanisms more and improve how we can root plants, it could help a few species of importance to Queensland.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and Nina obviously helped me a lot in mentoring me and getting the partners.
Yes. Yeah, so from all these explanations, I really understood one thing, that you were already, or you, during the process of application, you approached different people and different industries. So I want to get into the next assessment criteria of this application, which is meaningful collaboration, which is successfully achieved. So how exactly you approached them? Because with Alice's example, Alice said she had already connections with them. How was your journey when you either had or had not any communication with these industries, and how it developed and came into the shape that it is right now? Would you like to explain it?
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, I was a bit different from Alice because I didn't have any sort of partnerships already established. So I was also very lucky that I had Nina helping me with my application, and a lot of people were approaching her at that time. I think she'd just given a talk at some conference or something, and she was getting lots of like interest in the bioclay technology. And so she was also able to funnel some of that towards me and say, oh, you know, there's this like postdoc who's trying to apply for this fellowship. Would you be interested in supporting her? So I actually just had lots of meetings with these different people to meet them and to talk to them and explain the project. So I also had Lindy Coates on board from DAF. So I went and had a meeting with Lindy. I met her and like sort of told her a bit of my background and who I was and like, you know, what the project was. So yeah, I guess that did take a bit of time, like establishing those sort of, collaborations.
How was your experience?
Mine is a mixture of both, new as well as old. So when I was doing my PhD with Nina, which was on development of non-particle-based vaccines, the good thing about working with Nina is you get so much of exposure with industry, and I had met the BI people, the research people, and there was that existing, they knew who I was and what I was doing and what you guys doing. And we were already collaborating on a project which, as I said, was focused on developing improved pesticides, but not RNAi. So for the RNAi, I had to do a little bit of work as in proof of concept, which showed that yes, the technology is going to work and there is potential of it working for animal health. So once I had that, we again presented our data, what we had, the proof of concept to the company, and they were like, yeah, that sounds really good. And that's how they came on board. Then we went to DAF. For DAF, I have Dr. Bin Zhang on board, and who's also put in his time as salary. And then I have Andrea, Dr. Andrea McKenzie, who was leading the leadership program. So we have her time on board too. So who connected me to further growers. And I think because it's animal health sheep, the main growers who came on board were also through connections of Dr. Peter James. He connected to some of them, and I had to send that one pager to all of them explaining about the technology and the potential and what I was trying to achieve. And they all were very supportive, and they wanted a better, everyone wants a better control measure. So I think if you can show the impact, if you can show how significant, even if it's a small step, that it can make a good positive change, then that's what really people are looking for in terms of collaboration. Like the benefit that they are also going to have from the work that you're doing.
Yeah. And I think like Karishma said, we always, every time we go for any project with new partners, we have that one pager or two pager. We clearly outline this is the project, this is the aim, and this is the funding opportunity, and this is the leverage you're going to get.
Yeah.
If you put in $1, if government will give you $1, and if there's more partners, leveraging gets even better.
Yeah.
And UQ is also going to give you a PhD student, probably going to give you this, and our in-kind is going to be 100,000 a year with Nina's time, someone else's time. So for not much money in the scheme of things for a partner, you get a huge amount of benefit. So that's kind of what we always sell to people, as well as the actual project, obviously, because they have to see the benefit to them at the end. Yeah.
So was your journey as well, like was it smooth because you knew everyone before, or you added some new partners?
I think it's definitely made it so much easier for me. Mine was very lucky in that way. It was the first scheme and we had those partners already. We went again for one for Jaime last year, and she'd actually got on board from the start. We had the concept note for macadamia. We just cold called lots of macadamia growers and said, this is the project, this is what we're doing. We've done this in avocado, we're the first to do this in avocado. Happy to come and meet you and show you things. And a lot of people say no, but then the other people will say, oh yeah, tell me more. And so we kind of managed to get a few people interested just from cold calling them and saying Nina's name and the project and the coffee and selling it. And then we got an application together for her fellowship last year, and then they cancelled because of COVID. But we turned it into an ARC linkage, which was actually successful. Yeah. So we still managed to do that. Yeah. This year we've been trying again for another postdoc in our lab, and we've sent concept note after concept note, but we haven't had the same luck. Yeah. So you win some and you lose some. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are multiple approaches that we're seeing here. First, either you can simply blindly call within the industry and then find out your potential partners, or you can go through connections and then find out the potential partner by pitching your ideas to them. Right.
I suppose, cold calling is good if you have that kind of luxury in time. But also if you know someone who knows someone, then it becomes a little easier. The route becomes a little easier.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I guess with such a short turnaround time, it might be hard to get that letter of support that you need for the fellowship.
Yeah.
If you were, you could, if you started doing that now for next year, then probably yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
otherwise, I think it's not that easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. The turnaround time is so
Yeah.
short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard.
That's what my next question was actually. So looking at this process, how much time would you recommend to have as a buffer to get into this process? Let's say someone is starting now, then to develop that communication and that relation with industry, how much time do you reckon one should dedicate? And then overall period that they should put into this kind of things. Is there any?
I think maybe it depends on the project too, because for me, I could get partners really quick because we already had existing proof of concept and existing relationship. But if they don't know you,
Yeah.
and even then you need something to back up what you're saying. You need some prior research that you've done in the lab, or Nina's done, or it's the same but in a different species to show them something.
That's
If
gonna
it's
work.
just an idea,
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah, you're going to have to get that proof of concept first. So if you need to do that, you need to take time.
Yeah.
And then once you have that, it also, I think, depends on the reaction you get. And if it's a big company, they might need to go to their board and get permissions, and whereas if it's just a family-owned company, they might be happy to just say yes and think about it later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're approaching these industries, as a researcher, you have different questions that are framed around the main theme of your research. And some of them might be important from understanding the fundamental processes of your system to get extra outcomes from your study. So did you face that particular situation where you wanted to include a fundamental research part, I'm not saying the whole study, but a part of the study into Advanced Queensland Fellowship? And then is it possible to add these kind of questions? Is it possible to reach them to the industry? And how effectively it can be done? Or it should applicants simply ignore the fundamental science part and simply focus on the application?
It's an industry. You answered your question. It's an industry-based fellowship, right? So, like Alice said, are they interested to know about the fundamentals? Probably not, because they're industry focused. They really want to see the dollar value. So I suppose yes and no, because if you need the proof of concept, then probably you've already done the fundamental, which you can extend in a way in your application, but it can't be based just on that. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, so for mine, it does include a lot of fundamental research, but the way I framed it was with the application at the forefront. So the fundamental stuff was in there, but it was hidden, I guess you'd say, or like not so obvious.
Yeah.
So I'm still doing it, but the aim is not the fundamental question; it's the industry aim.
So you give that twist with words so that
you can write about it in the detail.
Yeah.
That's where you put it, but it's not right at the top.
Yeah. Like in your milestones and things, you have to do, identify the genes of interest.
Yeah.
And then test the expression of the genes. And then those genes become the ones that you're most interested in, and do bioassays, like kind of fundamental stuff. But then you're always pointing to the outcome will be the delivery.
Yeah, delivery.
Yeah.
was there any similar situation?
Yeah, because mine was a lot of just looking at how microRNAs, like which ones to target, can you apply them exogenously to plants, can they induce gene expression changes, can you get a phenotype out of it? So a lot of it was fundamental, but at the end it was like, if you do find something that can reliably induce reproduction, that's what they were interested in.
Okay, and when you approach and then your relationship with the industry gets solidified, what kind of negotiations you get into? If, let's say, when you start putting things together, you must be explaining them everything, and then they need, as you said, industry, they need something from you. What kind of negotiations you've been through? If you can share some light, then that would be perhaps helpful.
Yeah, so I guess photos are nice. Like if you've got some nice results, images, like they don't want to read a huge report, but maybe just a couple of nice photos really demonstrating your technology or whatever you're applying for. So that helped with me. And I think they just want to know what they will get out of it. So why should they support you? Like what's in it for them, basically. Kind of like what Alice was talking about before. So that's really all they're interested in. I mean, they are also interested in supporting a young person, I think, but they really need to know what they would get out of it.
Was there any certain way that you used to tell them that this is what you're going to get, or it was straightforward conversation with the industry? Like,
I think it's different with different partners. So I think for some of them, I didn't really have to explain it too much, but others were quite upfront about it and really did just ask bluntly, like, well, what do I get out of this? And it is tricky when you don't know if it's going to work or not, and you can't really just say, yes, for sure, I'm going to do this. So yeah, that's why it doesn't just happen in one conversation. You sort of have repeated conversations so that they sort of start to trust you a bit more and become more interested through these discussions in the project. And I guess also having other partners on board helps them gain confidence. So for example, for mine, I was very lucky to have some DAP experts. Like I have Ken Pegg, who's like been working in pineapples for like 40 years. So like all the pineapple growers know him. So you mentioned his name, he's on board, and they're like, oh, okay, well, in that case, like we trust him. Like they don't know me, but they know him. And so if I'm working with him, then they trust what I'm doing as well. So that sort of thing helps.
Yeah. And you get a lot of different partners, like some are very industry focused and outcome focused, and others are very more altruistic and they love to support research and they're happy to support you. And yeah, I think communication is really important, honesty is really important, and you don't want to oversell it. Definitely don't oversell it, because then that will also ruin your name later if you can't deliver on it. Yeah. So you've got to make sure they know that it's science and might not work. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
all right. So when it comes to the application process, so the translation and outcomes for Queensland, the outcome of the project, is it going to directly go to the collaborators? That's what you have pitched them, or is it going to go through UQ's IP protection thing? Is there any sort of communication that you had beforehand with industries?
Yeah, so I made it quite clear, because I'm working on the bioclay project and UFarm has signed up to commercialise all the bioclays. So we explained right at the beginning that this is what's going to happen, but obviously, like, if UFarm's not interested in developing it for this certain pathogen, then it's open to take it from there. But if it's actually sometimes in their interest that there's already a partner on board who will do that commercialization, and so they know there is a pathway towards commercialization, and so there is some, I guess, benefit in that. Yeah.
So for example, I had luxury to go through your application, Karishma, and you mentioned that there are actual sheep industry or individual sheep farmers who are involved in this project. So is it like you promise them that if anything positive comes out of that, then they'll get that treatment thing or something like that?
No, so they were on board because they liked the technology and they wanted to see, like, they wanted to support me, support the funding. So mainly they came on board. So in terms of BI, So like Anne said, the BioCare platform, even though the patent is with New Farm, for animal health, it's quite open. So New Farm doesn't have those rights. So when we were trying to get Boehringer Ingelheim on board, one of the selling point was, yes, this technology has moved so much forward with crop protection, with New Farm, and there is this potential to do the same with animal health. And what I used as my one-pager to them when I was trying to get them on board is I actually went ahead and I published it, even though it was just like a communication, because really work RNAi in animal health had not been done, like in terms of application for cattle and sheep. So we are swimming in the unknowns. So kind of yes, but it depends.
Depends on the project.
Yes, it depends.
Yeah.
And the partners, I think some partners ask straight up, what do I get out? Do I get a royalty? Do I own any IP? Who owns the IP? And then others are like, I don't care what happens. I just want the industry to benefit because then I'll benefit from it.
Because it's an industry-based project. So coming back to your question, for the individual growers, what they said is, all right, if you have something really potential formulation at the end of 3 years, we are happy for you to come and try it out on their farm, on their sheep, if they have the problem there. So which was very promising in terms of, if we wanted to do something in field, we have their support and we have them on board to do the work. So
like maybe conducting a big trial or something. Yeah.
Maybe not a big, it would depend on a lot of things, like how many animals are infected, how many they have, but just having the access to those facilities down the road, if the work formulation comes together, then it's good to know that there is a possibility of going in field and testing it.
Yeah. Okay. And one of the main thing that comes down to when we're filling the application is the funding part, which is like, I've seen so many people struggle to put numbers in the paper. I've also been through that process once so far, but how do you teach certain numbers, and when you're adding those numbers in your actual application, what criteria do you consider? Of course, there are consumables and things like that, but also what care do you take to not put too much budget in your application? How do you assess that budget for your application or for your project?
Yeah, I guess that was fairly easy for me because I didn't have that much money to work with. It pretty much just covered my salary, and then there was like a tiny bit left for consumables. And I put a bit of money into travel because I was going to visit some sites and possibly do field trials, or at least see what like their issues were and like what they were currently doing. So the money kind of disappeared quite quickly. So I guess it wasn't really difficult to like work out what to do with it.
But is there any particular care that future applicants should take not to get into that kind of situation? Is it possible at first?
It's really hard to do anything when you realize you have no consumables.
Yeah, but that's the problem with the whole ECR. So, we have the early career, which really essentially just pays for our salary. And how I was telling you about doing the field trial, like if we were to do a sheep trial, it would cost anywhere between 50,000 plus. We don't have that kind of money. Like the fellowship does not have that kind of money. That's when people like these growers, if you have them on board, at least there's a possibility you can do some kind of field work, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do it, because the early career, the amount of money for consumables is really very low. It's just essentially paying for our salary.
So basically, is it like once you get the fellowship, then you can apply for some other seed fundings or something like that?
There's little opportunities you can go for. Like Anne, you got some.
I got a couple coming out of my Advanced Queensland. So there was a QAAFI CHS collaborative fund. So I was successful in that. So that gave me like $25,000 for a year, which went into the same project. It was sort of like extending on that work. So that really allowed me to do a lot more at DAF, because they had put in kind support as time, but they didn't have any money for consumables or like glasshouse fees or anything budgeted in. So that extra money actually supported a lot of the glasshouse work that I did at DAF. So that was really great. And then I also applied for an APBSF, so the Biosecurity Foundation funding, which went towards the Myrtle Rust part of the project, and that was really helpful because it supported my honours student and sort of paid for some resources for her to do part of that work. So yeah, I really relied on that, I guess. But yeah, like Karishma was saying, like the in-kind support was really good. So even if it's not considered as cash, it is really helpful. Like for example, I had farmers who would send us pineapples. So otherwise I would have had to buy pineapples. Like, so that was sort of really important for my project. And then I had Gene Search on board who supplied me with enzymes. So it was in-kind support, but I had all the enzymes I needed. And enzymes are very expensive. So that was like, I think that was the most helpful in-kind I had. Support through enzymes, because we have to make a lot of RNA, we have to do lots of PCRs. So we went through a lot of polymerases.
It depends on your project. You'll know how much consumables you can feasibly get by with. Like molecular work is way more expensive than tissue culture work, for example. But you need to have a minimum, or there's no point. You need to have some operating, so you need to make sure whatever you're getting, you're at least covering what 110 to 20 for your salary on top of what government's giving you. Like, you've got to get to that point already, and that's with no operating. Then you need some, at least 20,000 a year, 10 if you're like really pulling at strings. But,
At least 10.
Yeah.
That's really good insight. The next part is proposed fellows track record. So we know that sometimes it is not possible for PhD students to get too many publications out of their PhD. And also some of PhD students that we are also currently seeing from our lab, that they're mostly working on industry funded projects where there is no possibility of getting any publications in some cases. So when those people try to approach Advanced Queensland industry funding, is it easier for them to say that I've worked on an industry project and that's why they are more suitable, or it is more difficult because then their track record doesn't show what they're capable of because they don't have publications? But was there any experience that you had?
I was mid-career, so I had much more behind me already. And I had a lot of collaborations behind me with a lot of joint papers that helps. But I think you've really got to sell it relative to your opportunity. If you're just down a PhD, you've only got one paper, or maybe you couldn't publish anything because it's commercial in confidence. You've got to have your proof of concept, commercial information, and then you've just got to point out that, you weren't able to publish because of the commercial reasons, but it has already been translated to one commercial license. Like you've got to showcase the impact in a different way, but you do have to have some evidence of impact, whether it's through academic outputs like journal articles or something, or that it's you've made these collaborations with industry and you've already got one license or one patent, or it has potential to do this, and this is the first time ever it's been done. You've just got to really sell. You've got to sell your project and sell yourself relative to your opportunity.
Okay. Did you handle it in a certain way?
Yeah, well, I was also lucky because I wasn't going straight out of my PhD into this. So I had done 3 years as a postdoc. So I had publications, although my publications were all in a totally different area. So I was actually quite surprised that my track record seemed like, it was satisfactory because I was thinking, I don't have any publications in RNAi, for example. It's all in algae and photosynthesis. So I think in terms of like grant schemes, maybe the Advanced Queensland is a bit better than like a DECRA, for example, which really focuses on publications.
From the similar sector?
Well, so DECRA is another early career research fellowship. So I think, because I also applied for a DECRA and wasn't successful.
I applied 3 times.
So like I had a better experience with Advanced Queensland. But I think it's like that proof of concept. Like I had been working on RNAi for a year when I applied, so I had some experience and I had mentors. I was in the right lab with the right people, so I think that really helped with my application.
How was your experience with that?
It was quite similar because all of my, again, I was 3 years out of my PhD, and most of my publications were on vaccine development. They were not on RNAi. However, I think I had few, so it passed, and plus I had maternity break, so I already had RE then, so that was which I added as, that's why, which is, I guess if you show the reasons, if you've had a break or if you've done something and plus what you already have, if you can show it, then that really helps.
Yeah. And don't write it in a negative way. Don't say, oh, I haven't been able to publish anything because it's commercial. You've got to say, I've had so much commercial impact, and although this is restricted publication, I've learned so much about collaborating with industry, and I've supervised X number of students, and this shows that I can really help in supervision of a PhD student. And I've worked with X number of collaborations on joint papers, and this shows that I'm really good at collaborating with people. Like, you've got to highlight what it will show.
Just a positive spin to everything. There is nothing which is, oh, I just did that. But you just have to show that how many people you engage, even if it's in your own lab, even if it's, helping someone else, even if it's just for one experiment, or even if it's showing someone, you just have to try and incorporate everything into it, because everything adds up at the end.
So since you also pointed out your pregnancy time around that time, I'd like to ask, I think Alice was also in a similar phase during that time. So do you have any encouraging word for future female researchers from that point onwards, like how you tackle with your family responsibilities, and also got successful with the Advanced Queensland Fellowship?
I think it would be safe to say we learn from the best. We see Nina do that with her 2 daughters, and really, and there are times when we find it hard, but we look at her and we think, no, we can keep going. It's all right, we can do it.
Exactly. We can't complain because we've seen.
No.
But I will say, because I went on maternity leave during my fellowship, and I didn't know this, but all the leave and stuff accrues while you're on leave. So I came back to like 60 days of leave, and that hadn't been paid for in my fellowship. And I'd spent a lot of the consumables money. So just watch out. Just learn these rules before you spend everything and go on leave. You need money
to go on leave.
And I didn't know that. So got a bit of trouble for that.
Yeah, I was told the same by finance that I have to take leave, because then your funding does not have that much money to support your salary, so you have to make sure you do that leave.
And I think, sorry, can I just say, one thing we didn't touch on much, we said benefits to our partners, but not to Queensland. Like, the whole point of this is to really show a tangible benefit to Queensland. Like, you have to sell that the whole time. You've got to go to the Queensland government website, you've got to look up their buzzwords, their strategic directives, you've got to use those same words like economic co-benefits with environmental outcomes and stuff. And like, you've got to put that in there. And you can't oversell it, but you've got to show how significant it could be. If this works, there'll be an increase to the supply chain. And if you can quantify it, that's way better. Like, if you can model, say you got X number more plants out and they're each bearing this much more fruit, then there'd be an X percentage more increase in production, which gives X percent to the supply chain. Like, if you can quantify things, it really helps.
So we're really at the end of our session, but if there are any questions to viewers that they specifically want to ask, or specifically want answers on particular section or of application or something like that, then please put your question in question answer section or in chat as well. We are happy to answer those questions as soon as we get.
Don't use technical terms. Gonna make it really easy to understand.
So Bruce Top is asking a question. What are weighing for 4 assessment criteria, or are they equally weighted? Yeah, and
I think, is there a percent given in the actual?
no, there is no percentage given in the application.
I would think the Queensland one would be the top, like the impact to Queensland, but I don't know if I were to think that, I'm not sure.
Benefits and outcomes for Queensland is what you should really make clear,
Focus on,
very clear.
Yeah.
But the good person to ask for that would probably be Ron.
Yes.
And the UQRNI.
They might have some guidelines on the website actually.
Yeah. So sorry guys, there is no clear answer at the moment on that head. But there is another question. Do you know who assesses the application? Is it government?
I know it's people that they're not experts, right, in anything you're doing. So that's why you've got to keep it really, really simple. And they're looking to tick off boxes. They're looking to tick off, these are the benefits they've outlined. This is hitting these buzzwords. It's within this their focus scheme for agriculture or food or whatever. I don't think that they're not necessarily going to understand.
And maybe that's why the application also mentions that write it in a simple English.
So that anyone can understand.
So the application assessment team may not be the expert from the subject.
No,
probably not. Yeah, so that's the best answer. You've got to be as simple as possible so that everybody can understand you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question. Any other questions? No, long silence? No, I'm not eligible for that.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think that sums up the this session, and I hope that all the participants of this webinar had some insight into Advanced Queensland Fellowship application, and hope there is some haze cleared up because of the experience that has been shared by these experts. Thank you so much for joining and sharing your experience, Alice, Anne, and Karishma. And thank you so much, guys. There's actually another one question. So if you have so Tim is asking, if you have 4.5-year research and 1-year commercial, are you early or mid-career? I think you're still in early career window, because the application document really explains it, what they call as early career or mid-career. It's more than 6 or 9.
I think it's more than 5 years is mid, but I'm not sure how they consider commercial.
If it's a job in industry, you'd have to justify if it's an actual break away from research or not.
I think you could probably swing it either way, like to suit you. Like, so if you want to go for the early one, you can frame it in the way that this was a break from research. Or if you want to go for mid, you say it's research experience or whatever.
But probably ask, who's the person at UQRNI that actually deals with all the
Nashi at the moment.
Yeah, but I think Ron would be the best person for coffee, maybe next time we should have someone from her or her team.
Yes.
Like they would be really helpful in terms of answering these questions.
And everyone putting an application, they need to tell Ron and the team that they're putting one in. They need to know.
And there's also another update. So QAAFI EMCR's member Elizabeth Wall, who was previous president of QAAFI EMCR Committee, she is actually joined the QAAFI Fellowship team, assessment team in UQ at the moment. So she's encouraging all the applicants to contact them as soon as possible so that they can look into their application more carefully and give you guys some more insights and then where it can be improved. So if you can reach out to them as early as possible, you may get some more quick response about which particular section needs to improve in your current application.
The sooner you get it to them, the more feedback you'll get.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
If you hand it in the day before it's due,
They don't have time.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So reach out to them as early as possible. That'll help you, I guess. Yep. So yeah, now I hope there are no more questions left. Thank you so much for joining, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.